Hello and welcome to the White House of the Confederacy. My name's Dean Knight and I'm a supervisor of White House operations here. This house was built in 1818 as the private residence for John Brokenbraw. He was a doctor and also the president of the Bank of Virginia, and he lived here with his family until 1844. The house passed through several more private owners after that, and in 1857 it was purchased by Lewis Crenshaw, a wealthy flour mill owner. Crenshaw did a lot with the house. He added the third floor onto it, he put in a bathroom on the second floor, and completely refurnished the house in all the latest mid-Victorian styles. And then in 1861, when he learned that the Confederate government was moving from Montgomery, Alabama here to Richmond, he sold the house with everything in it to the city of Richmond, and then the city rented it to the Confederate government. In August of 1861, the President of the Confederate States of America, Jefferson Davis, moved into the house, and he lived here from August of 1861 until April of 1865. And today the house is restored to its wartime appearance, or at least as close as we can come. We do have a lot of the original furnishings, meaning the things that were here when Jefferson Davis lived here. The other furnishings are period antiques. The only reproductions in the house are textiles, for the most part carpets, wallpaper, draperies, and upholstery, and a few other things, the kinds of things that don't last 150 years. So come on inside. Mrs. Davis referred to this room as the state dining room, partially to distinguish it from the family dining room, which was down in the basement, actually below where I'm standing right now. The Davises took most of their ordinary meals down there, but this room would have been reserved for special occasions, dinners with important guests, holiday meals with the family, parties, banquets, and sometimes military meetings. And we have the table, which is an original piece set up for a military meeting. And we happen to know a number of details about one particular meeting that took place here around this table on April 14th of 1862. The topic of discussion was the Union Army siege of Yorktown, Virginia. And the men present at the discussion were President Jefferson Davis, George Wythe Randolph, the Confederate Secretary of War at this point in the war. Randolph was also a grandson of Thomas Jefferson. Davis and Randolph were meeting with four Confederate generals: Robert E. Lee, Joseph Johnston, James Longstreet, and Gustavus Smith. Union General George McClellan had a 100,000-man army at Yorktown. The Confederates had about 10,000, maybe 12,000 men at Yorktown on the other side of a forest from McClellan. The Confederate commander at Yorktown, however, was a pretty clever guy. His name was John Magruder. His nickname was Prince John because he was quite clever, an interesting, flamboyant, theatrical man, all qualities that served him very well during the siege of Yorktown. Magruder put on a show for George McClellan. He marched his men in a circle, just around and around in front of a gap in the forest that separated the two armies. Now, he told those men, as they were marching around, to be as noisy as they possibly could. He told them to shout out orders to non-existent units. He had men in the back of his lines chop down trees, strip them of branches, paint them black, and set them up horizontally on hillsides so that they looked like cannons. And all this stuff worked. George McClellan and his spies, including the famous Allen Pinkerton, were apparently fooled by these tricks that were being played on them by General Magruder, and they didn't move for a month, due in large part to these tricks. Now, Davis and his advisors were pleased that Magruder was holding McClellan off, but also realistic. They knew that at some point they'd probably have to face this threat to Richmond. So they were discussing overall strategy, what to do about this enormous army that posed an imminent threat to Richmond and really to the Confederacy itself. They discussed all sorts of options, whether they should hold at Yorktown as long as possible, whether they should withdraw all forces here to the gates of Richmond, or whether they should attack. They should attack north into Philadelphia or even New York City. All these things discussed that evening, April 14th, 1862, from about 7 p.m. to 1 o'clock in the morning around this table.